When you've got a stunning piece of beef just like this, you not only have to cook it well, but you've got to serve it with a really good sauce. So I'm going to show you my French shallot sauce. It's rich, it's deep in flavour, and this is one you'll definitely want to put in your repertoire because you're going to be using it over and over again. It's that good. So the steak, I've brought it out of the fridge. You can see it's a thick piece of steak. I like to use Scotch Fillet, but this sauce works with any cut from fillet of beef to sirloin, even a rump steak is fantastic. So while that comes up to temperature, for the sauce, I've got my pot on a medium heat. I'll add a splash of olive oil along with some butter, just a small knob of butter, and we'll start to sweat off our shallots. Now these are French shallots that I've finely chopped. I've finely chopped them because I don't want big chunks in the final result. So finely chop them, and we want to release their sweetness. So we want to add them to the butter and the oil and just let them cook down for a bit. We'll just turn that up slightly. Okay, to this I'll add some garlic. Again, I've finely chopped the garlic, and I always like to give the French shallots a bit of a head start, then add the garlic so the garlic doesn't burn too much. So we'll cook that down, just give that a few minutes to soften and keep an eye on it. So the herb of choice is thyme. Thyme and steak, best friends, and I'm just going to pick all of the leaves off the stems. You want about 3 to 4 sprigs of thyme for this recipe. I wouldn't use rosemary for this because it can be a little bit overpowering. Thyme is just the absolute best. You could change it, however, to a bit of parsley, but I wouldn't add it right now. I'd add the parsley at the end just because it is more delicate than thyme. All right, we'll just gather that up, all our little leaves, and I'll just run a knife through it a few times just to cut it up finer. Okay, that can go in with our shallots and garlic. Let's give that a quick stir. Oh, and that just smells so good. So time for some tomato paste. The tomato paste is not only going to give our sauce a rich flavour, but it's also going to help thicken it. I do cook it off, just like I cook off the flour. So we'll add the flour. This is also going to help give us a thicker style sauce. So in with the flour and cook them both off. Now we're really starting to develop the flavours in this sauce. Once that's cooked off, it's almost like a roux here because we've added the flour. We can add the liquid. And I will turn the heat up because we want to evaporate some of the alcohol that we're adding now. So we start with some brandy. In that goes. And you'll see that come to the boil. Usually you would flambe this, but you don't always have to do that. As long as it's bubbling and evaporating, you are cooking off the alcohol. And it's just really taking shape now. Some red wine, a splash of red wine. And to tie everything together, you need some stock. I'm using a beef stock for this. I'm also not adding any salt because there's enough salt in my beef stock. You want about 500 mils of beef stock for this recipe because now it's about slowly cooking this down and reducing. And this is what's going to give us a lovely savoury flavour. So in with about 500 mils, you'll give that a stir. And right now you may think, oh, it looks so watery. Patience. We're going to cook this down. Once it's reduced by about half, then we can start cooking the steak. And for the steak, I don't add any pepper on it whatsoever, just a little bit of olive oil, salt, and I'm going to cook this one for about 2 to 3 minutes on each side. I like mine to be medium rare to rare. All right, the steak is cooked. I do allow it to rest. Resting is key for a really juicy steak. And have a look at this stunning sauce. See how it's reduced significantly? That's just by leaving it to gently cook away. And because I've added that tomato paste and also the flour, it has thickened up. Now, because this is quite rich in flavour, just to round it off, I like to add a splash of cream. So just some thickened cream. You don't need much, 2 to 3 tablespoons at most. And give that a stir. I'll just use a wooden spoon for this. And look at that gorgeous colour. Fantastic. It's not too thick, it's not too thin. It's just right, exactly how it should be. Okay, I'll just let that cook off just for a moment while we slice this stunning Scotch fillet. So after resting it, I'm just going to slice it against the grain, perfectly cooked. And you may notice there's no juices whatsoever on my board. That's because we've rested it. And that means that the juices don't go on the board, they go back into the steak, leaving it with that lovely texture, that juicy texture that we all love so much with a steak. So this is enough for 2 people. And once we've sliced it, I just want to show you how perfectly cooked this is. Look at this slice right here. So juicy, pink all the way through too, because we did bring it out of the fridge for an hour so it can come to room temperature, and we've allowed it to rest. So I like to serve this with lots of sauce because I love this sauce so much. So a drizzle on the plate to start with. We'll just grab a spoon, almost a little blanket for our gorgeous steak to sit on, and just spread that around on the plate. We'll place that on top. And I always just like to sort of tilt it on an angle so we can see, as we say in the cooking world, the cuisson, or the cooking of the steak, so you can show off the medium rareness of it. A little freshly cracked pepper and some more sauce over the top, just on some of these end bits. A little more here. And for a garnish, just a hint of thyme. I also like the flavour of the fresh thyme too, so sprinkle of that over the top. Now, if you want to impress someone, maybe on a date night, then cook this dish. Serve it with some roast potatoes, some chippies, maybe a side salad. It is so impressive, but most of all, it's this sauce that I want you to remember. Really easy to make. In fact, you can make this ahead of time. Just warm it up. You'll look like a pro in the kitchen.